Hello friends, I wanted to come on today to continue my series on safely and comfortably co-sleeping. So another question that I get so often is about burping. And at night when babies are co-sleeping and they're feeding laying down, they tend to nurse whenever they want. It's kind of an all-night buffet. And I know Astrid does. I thought I'd bring her on just for a few minutes to see if she would actually sit with us for a minute. I don't think she's going to because she wants to attack my microphone. But I didn't think she'd want to stay here very long with us. But I thought I'd bring her in just for a few minutes because she's so cute. Oh my goodness. Do you have lots to say? When you're laying down and you're nursing and co-sleeping, the baby barely wakes up, mama barely wakes up, and it's just kind of this all-night buffet. So what do? Do you just let them sleep through the night? Do you actually get up and burp them? It's a great question, and it's one that doesn't have a straight answer, unfortunately. Are you wiggly? Do you want to go see Dad? Okay, Dad came and got her, and now she can go be wiggly somewhere. I wish there was a straight answer for this. And, I can honestly say, it is very dependent on a few different factors. So first, I want to talk about what causes a baby to need to burp. Breastfed babies generally do not need to be burped as much as babies that are on formula, that drink from a bottle. Bottle-fed babies get a lot more air in their bodies, and thus they need to burp. Now, breastfed babies, not so much. If they have a good latch and you don't have, an overactive letdown, or there's not some other issue going on with your breastfeeding relationship, then there's no reason why they should be getting air into their bodies. Now, there are a few ways that they would be creating air themselves without actually intaking air by nursing. Having a immature digestive system could be one component, and the immature digestive system is a baby is born and they really don't have the enzymes built up yet to break down the proteins that are in the mom's milk. And so a lot of times this causes some gastral distress and gas and discomfort for them. Usually this goes away after the first 2 weeks or so. If it persists, then you're looking at something more like a food sensitivity or maybe even a food allergy. That is something that I did deal with my second son. He had a food sensitivity to dairy, and this was before I was vegan. I was vegetarian and almost vegan, but he just put me into the vegan zone because I realized that it was dairy that was causing him so much trouble. Took about 2 weeks to get it out of my system and out of his. Unfortunately, it takes a little while, but then he was fine and he never needed to be burped with any feeding. So, it is very possible to be able to have a co-sleeping and breastfeeding, laying down kind of relationship without actually needing to get up and burp at night. I've done it with all 6 of them. So we have these different components. We have, the latch, possibly an overactive letdown where the mama's breast milk is letting down really fast and the baby's having a really hard time catching up. When that happens, they tend to gulp a lot. And when they gulp, they bring in air. They break that seal when they're breastfeeding, and they bring in a bunch of air, and then, of course, they need to burp. That can also happen, too, if they're not nursing enough off of one side. You have foremilk and hind milk, and too much foremilk can make the baby gassy if they don't get the hind milk afterwards. And there's a lot of reasons for this, and I will go into this another time. But just so you know, that can contribute to the baby being gassy. So, you're kind of sleepy, the baby's sleepy, you latch them on, and you don't really think about the amount of time that they spend on that breast. If they get a lot of foremilk and then they pull off, that could contribute. maybe be a little bit more mindful that when they nurse, they maybe you put them back on and see if they can nurse a little bit longer so that they get some of that hind milk so it doesn't create gas. And then you have the issue with food sensitivity and a food allergy. And these are things that you can tackle down the road as well. So these are the different factors that come into play when it comes to whether a baby needs to be burped at night. And, some babies might just be gassier than others. So, this isn't a steadfast checklist, but for the most part, with my babies and the babies that I've dealt with being a doula, this is pretty much some of the reasoning as to why breastfeeding laying down at night doesn't work. But thankfully, a lot of these things are very easy fixes. Fixing a latch can be a little bit challenging, but it's definitely fixable. Overactive letdown, it's challenging, but there's certain ways to get around it. Usually your body regulates over time when it has that supply and demand relationship with your baby. They demand a certain amount of milk and you supply it. Your overactive letdown kind of regulates itself and it remedies itself over time. So that's fixable. Food sensitivity, that is a matter of just doing maybe an elimination diet or paying a really close attention, maybe doing a food journal to what you've been eating. And those nights that the baby maybe is a little bit more fussy and gassy and needs to be burped more, and then you can kind of start taking things out of your diet. Or you can do a complete elimination diet where you take a whole bunch of the allergens out of your diet. All of these, things that cause food sensitivity. Dairy is a big one. Soy is another one. Gluten. A lot of vegetables that might produce gas in adults. Cabbage, broccoli, things like that, spicy food. Start taking those out and see if that helps your baby as well. And then you can go even further into maybe the baby has a food allergy. Does someone in your family have a food allergy or your husband's family? So you just start knocking these things out. It can be remedied most of the time just with a little bit of work, paying attention to your baby, figuring out what it is that makes your baby, comfortable and what makes your baby uncomfortable, and just having that great symbiotic relationship with your baby and figuring out what works for you. So again, it's going to depend on the baby. It's going to depend on the circumstance. If co-sleeping and nursing laying down without having to get up and burp them after each feeding is important to you, because it is a wonderful practice and it's so nice to be able to get a full night's sleep and not actually even have to sit up and the baby not waking up and they get a full night's sleep. It's so wonderful. If this is something that you really want to shoot for, then these are the things that you want to look at and figure out if there's something that you can do to help remedy the situation and make it so that you guys can just sleep and nurse and not get up and burp. It is doable and it won't hurt the baby. The baby will obviously let you know if they have some discomfort. So I don't want you to think that you're under any obligation to burp the baby. If they're showing no signs of needing it, then it's definitely not something that you have to do. So thank you again. I appreciate you guys asking these questions so that I can make videos to answer them. And until next time, be well.